What's going on, everyone? Jeremy Gray here, and in today's video I want to talk about 3 things that I regret buying for YouTube. With all the gear FOMO out there in the world, I figured this could maybe help put some things into perspective and help somebody out. And before we get into the video, I do want to say, even though I'm titling this video 3 things that I regret buying, I'm not saying that you shouldn't buy these or that you should also regret buying them. In fact, I still actually own 2 of the 3 things that I'm about to mention. So let's get into it. Alright, so as creators, especially if we're newer and starting off, we get this gear FOMO. We think that we need this stuff in order to be better YouTubers, better photographers, better filmmakers, whatever it is that you're aiming for. There's a lot of the time the gear FOMO, the fear of missing out. Like, you need this particular piece of equipment to get the shot, to get better, and that's just usually not the case. I usually don't try to let gear FOMO get the best of me, but occasionally it does, and I made some purchases probably a little earlier than I had to because I thought that it would make me better off. And the first thing that I'm going to talk about right now is a gimbal. I bought a Geremygrey V2 about 1.5 years ago. I bought it right before my backpacking trip to Vietnam. I figured it would help me get more cinematic shots for my vlogs and any videos that I wanted to make while I was there, and I figured that I would use it all the time for my YouTube videos, and that just wasn't the case in the end. And I was inspired to purchase a gimbal because so many people use gimbals, and some of my favorite YouTubers and filmmakers use gimbals, and someone like Brandon Lee, who's an amazing filmmaker, gets these amazing epic shots, and I figured maybe if I had a gimbal I can get something like that. And that's a rookie mistake. Don't think that just because you get a piece of equipment that somebody else uses, you can also replicate what they're doing. I actually realized that the gimbal slowed me down a little bit while I was shooting, just because of the particular way I like to shoot. And taking the time to set up a shot and then execute the shot and maybe do another take or another take or another take, it just really slowed me down, and I much prefer just having the camera in my hand and just kind of running around and doing the thing, not controlling the gimbal and making sure everything's all perfect and this and that. And you know, gimbals aren't perfect either. You have to really pay attention to how you're holding it, how you're walking, how you're stepping. Well, I guess walking and stepping are the same thing, but you know what I mean. So it's not perfect. So in the end, it kind of slowed me down, and I did get a lot of shots with the gimbal while traveling that I do like. I don't use it like I thought I would. And to be honest, I'm not sure if just a lot of practice and patience will fix that for me. Maybe if I just get really, really good with it, then I'll enjoy using it a lot more. That's probably true. But right now at this point in time, I don't really care to get much better with a gimbal particularly. But again, don't get me wrong, gimbals are super useful and versatile pieces of equipment and definitely hold their place. And this is for my specific workflow and how I like to shoot stuff. So don't let that discourage you if you own a gimbal or want a gimbal. Just think about what you really need. All right, the next thing on my list is a drone. I bought a DJI Mavic Air. And this is a tricky one for me because I do love flying the drone, but like the gimbal, I use it a lot less than I thought I would. And I realized unless I was going somewhere specifically to fly the drone, like I want to go shoot drone footage in this mountain somewhere, then I found that the drone just distracted me more than it benefited me. I would spend so much time focusing on the drone where I was that I wouldn't really enjoy anything else or do anything else, take any pictures or other video clips, anything like that. And another example is I use my drone a lot while in the Philippines, but if that was a trip specifically for creating content, then that would be totally okay, but it wasn't. It was a family vacation. I took my family to the Philippines, so we were relaxing and hanging out. And when we're on the beach and I'm getting distracted with the drone, it's constantly in the back of my head like, oh, I should be paying attention to them, or I should be swimming with her and hanging out with the family. And I'd be there filming with the drone. But so that was always lingering in my head too. And like I mentioned, I really do enjoy flying the drone. I think that I just get bored. Like if I was traveling more, I think I'd be using the drone a lot more. And I know it's a really, really bad thing to say because you should be able to do things even in your hometown. But for something like the drone specifically, I live in Vermont, and when I put her up in the sky, I see green mountains for miles upon miles upon miles. And don't get me wrong, I'm not taking that for granted. It is extremely, extremely beautiful, but I just kind of get bored flying the drone in Vermont specifically. So I think that if I was changing up scenery and locations and climates a lot more, then I'd have a lot more fun. And for example, when the seasons change in Vermont is typically when I start flying again. When it's winter, fall, summer, you know the seasons. That's when I'll start flying the drone again to get the different kind of scenery that's going on in the mountains. So just like the gimbal, the drone is a super versatile tool. It has its place in your kit if you have one. It's just not the first thing that I reach for. I do hope to use it a lot more once I move to Guam. Alright, so the third and final item is a bit controversial, and I say that because I made a review on this lens and a lot of people bought this lens based on my recommendation. So let me kind of explain. So the lens I'm talking about is the Canon EF 50mm 1.8 lens, the Nifty 50. I bought that lens because it was cheap and I was sort of on a budget, and I just wanted something faster than the kit lens, also with sort of a longer focal length. Even though the kit lens goes to 45 on the M50 and this is a 50, the aperture is just much wider, 1.8 compared to 6.3 or whatever it is. Like, that's just a insane difference, so it's not even comparable. So let me tell you the problem that I had with the 50mm. I didn't find myself using it that much. It wasn't always practical for the kinds of videos that I like to make. Since the Canon M50 doesn't have built-in IBIS and that lens is pretty long, it's kind of hard to keep stable when you're shooting handheld, so I'd find myself pairing the lens with the gimbal, which we found out that I don't really like using the gimbal, so that was also a big deterrent. Something to note, the lens is spectacular for taking photos, it's great for portraits. I just didn't find myself needing to bust it out that often because I do have a system specifically for photography, so the 50mm didn't really make sense for the M50 since the M50 is my vlogging setup, not my photography setup, you know? And I want to bring it back to Vietnam one more time. I had this lens with me in Vietnam, and I kid you not, I probably pulled it out less than 5 times. I want to say I pulled it out like 2 or 3 at most, if that. And I don't even really remember any 50mm footage making it into any of my Vietnam vlogs that I made. It just unfortunately was not super practical for the types of videos that I like to make, and like I mentioned, I don't need it for photography, so it didn't really make sense to keep because I don't like to hoard gear. So I sold it to fund my purchase for the 22mm lens for the Canon EOS M50, and I don't regret that whatsoever. That lens is spectacular and has treated me so well. And like the other 2 items, if you own this lens, try not to regret it. Or if you own this lens and you don't really use it, maybe this will help you realize that you might want to sell it and fund a different lens that will be more practical for you. But if you have it and you love it and you use it a lot, that's awesome, because who doesn't love having a nice lens that they use a lot? Because lenses are great, aren't they? They're just great. Alright, so those are my 3 items that I regret buying for YouTube. And like I said, I still own the gimbal and the drone, so let me kind of explain why I'm keeping those just a little bit more. Like I mentioned, I honestly do feel like I'm going to use the drone a lot more once I live in Guam, and also once the world kind of goes back to normal and we can start traveling again. I think the drone is going to come in handy quite a bit, and I'm going to really enjoy flying it. And as for the gimbal, I do see its usefulness, and since I own it, I don't really see the reason to sell it, because I'm not strapped for cash for new gear, so I might as well just keep that one piece of gear around, because I do want to get more into like creative filmmaking aside from just the YouTube stuff. So I think when that time comes, it'll be a very valuable asset to my kit. So try not to take this video as telling you what not to buy, but more just put things into perspective. Think about what you need as a creator or a YouTuber at this moment in time, and don't think about what you think might make you a better creator, because that's usually not the case. It's usually not the gear that's gonna make you better, unless you're super duper limited by what you have already and you're ready to evolve as a creator. I made the mistake of thinking that I needed a gimbal or a drone to make my vlogs better or my tutorials better, and that just simply wasn't the case. I was being super duper naive, and I absolutely had gear FOMO because so many people had those items, and I'm like, I want them too. So try not to do that. It's really in your best interest. So just do your best creating with what you have available to you in this moment. That's usually the best advice that you can get. Use the gear that you have, use it and run it into the ground. Really put it through the works, put it through its paces, get the most out of it, and then when you're ready to evolve, you can upgrade your gear. Listen, I catch myself all the time getting gear FOMO. New bodies come out, new lenses come out, new mics come out. I want it all, but I need to catch myself and be like, Jeremy, you don't need that. Alright, I've rambled enough. This video is over. I hope you enjoyed. I hope this helped you out and helped put things in perspective. If you're curious about any of the gear that I use to make my videos or take my photos, I'll have Amazon affiliate links down in the description. Those links bring you over to Amazon. If you buy anything with those links, I get a small commission at no extra cost to you. Subscribe for more content. Drop a like if this helped you out. And if you have any further questions, leave a comment down below. I will get back to you. Thank you all so much for watching. I just got 800 subscribers. I really appreciate each and every single one of you. That's really just like, that's awesome. 800? Really, really cool. Super pumped on that. So let's keep going, and I'll catch you all on the next one. Bye.